The rebellion of 1857 marked the time when people revolted against the British that led the 20th century a different path. The new nation had changed due to grievances, railways, and new technologies. It brought the Indians to view the nation differently than before.
The British decided to do what they had done before and make the differences in local populations worse. They used religious identities to prevent them from unifying. As long as they were separated, the British would remain in power. Today, religious identities still remain a big divider in India.
In 1899, Lord Curzon took over the viceroyship. Upon taking his position, he immediately worked to lessen the number of Indians on the elected board in Calcutta. In the year of 1904, Curzon held a secret all-British meeting that restricted the number of Indian professors. This was later called the University Act. Curzon's intentions were clear: to limit the Indians' access to government and education.
Curzon's decision to separate an entire state in the partition of Bengal made diversity even bigger. Since the British power was in the city of Calcutta, Curzon aimed to part the Indian constituency to ease the rule of the British. The partition of Bengal had different views, where groups made an effort in their own methods to overcome British control and to launch their own plans of India.
In response, the Swadeshi movement incorporated many groups. Some tried to petition the colonial government and air their grievances in the press. Some practiced a more aggressive resistance. People across Bengal began participating in the movement, as well as by boycotting all British goods and business and boosting the Indian economy.
As discontent and reactions continued in the Indian response to the partition of Bengal, London sent over a new viceroy to take Curzon's position. This was done to lessen the protests from the Indian population. The new colonial administration utilized the morally minted reforms in 1909 in hopes that Indians would feel as though their demands were being met. The morally minted reforms greatly increased the number of elected Indian seats in government. However, the Indian population was still divided along religious lines, which created separate electorates for the Muslims.
While the Congress had retained a mediocre view and a strong feeling for non-religious policy, the Swadeshi movement, which contained religiosity and Hindu symbols, gave the Muslims some discomfort. Some Bengali Muslims at first were against the partition of Bengal, but others had a different view. They believed that it would be a good idea to separate states for themselves. It was when the Muslim League, a political organization, was formed in 1906. Its location was in the city of Dhaka of East Bengal.
After 6 years of resistance, the British revoked the partition of Bengal in 1911. Bihar, Orissa, and Assam were created because of this. The partition of Bengal was important because it enabled people to put aside their differences and come together against the British.
After the trouble that the partition of Bengal caused, the British started to rely on the Indian men to fight their war, while promising reparations for their service. World War I was fought over the right of a people to govern themselves, but the Indians knew that the British did not extend this value throughout the empire.
1916 was the period of time where two prospering political organizations arranged an agreement of self-determination. The two organizations were the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League. They decided it was best to represent a variety of groups. Therefore, agreements were made and both parties led to the creation of the Lucknow Pact of 1916.
The Lucknow Pact led to India's Secretary of State Edwin Montagu to propose the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms in 1917. These created a diarchy. For example, India controlled health, education, and local government, while Britain controlled defense, law, revenue, and communication. But the Indians were still unhappy. This led to the Rowlatt Acts in 1919, passed by the legislature of British India. The acts permitted certain political cases to be attempted without juries and allowed undecided detention for any person that the colonial state wanted to finish.